Hello and welcome to a day in 15 minutes UPSC Prelims Daily Current Affairs by Ekam IAS. Today is 7th July 2021 and the topics for discussion are the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Sanctuary, joint communication between the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, open network for digital commerce, and finally the Ministry of Cooperation. At the end of the session, we will also be having a previous year question revision series. Now coming to the first topic, which is the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Sanctuary or the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Tiger Reserve. Now this has basically come in news because there was a proposal to convert the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Sanctuary into a tiger reserve, and that was given a green signal by the technical committee of the National Tiger Conservation Authority, that is NTCA. Now basically what will happen if the Ramgarh Vishhadhari becomes a tiger reserve is that Rajasthan will get its newest tiger reserve, the 4th tiger reserve in Rajasthan. Alright, now after the green signal for this move was given by the NTCA, it was also allowed by the Government of India, and now Rajasthan is planning to develop a tiger corridor which will connect 3 tiger reserves, and this tiger reserve will pass through 3 districts, which is the Savai Madhopur, Kota and Bundi. Now the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Sanctuary, which will be linking the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve in the northeast region and the Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve in the southern side. So in one single stretch you will have a very large area of tiger reserves, which is going to be very helpful for increasing the population of tigers. It will also help in the migration or movement of tigers to a larger extent. At the same time, because of the fact that we are getting the tiger reserve category given here, the area of protection for these species, which is the tiger species, will also increase significantly. Now as you can see in this image, you can see where exactly the Ramgarh Tiger Reserve will be located. As you can see, it is north of Kota and somewhat south of Jaipur. On the northeast of this particular reserve, we have the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. And even though it is not shown in the map, you will know somewhere southwest of this particular region, you will have your Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve as well. Now, as I told you, with the addition of this particular tiger reserve, we will have 4 tiger reserves in Rajasthan. So, which are those tiger reserves? The first one is the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, which is located in Savai Madhopur. The second one is the Sariska Tiger Reserve, located in Alwar. Mukundra Tiger Reserve in Kota, and finally the latest one, which is the Ramgarh Vishhadhari Tiger Reserve in Bundi. Now coming to the next topic of the day, which is the joint communication between the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Now recently the Ministry of Tribal Affairs and the Environment Ministry had signed a joint communication agreement, basically to give more rights to the tribal communities for the management of forest resources. The main reason as to why they had to come have a agreement like this, a joint communication agreement like this, was for the better implementation or a more effective implementation of the Scheduled Tribes and Other Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Act of 2006. This particular act, which was in news for a very long time, also known as simply the Forest Rights Act. For the better implementation of this particular act, both these ministries had to come together and sign a joint communication agreement. So the most important part here is actually understanding the Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now basically this particular act actually recognizes the rights of the forest dwelling tribal communities and other traditional forest dwellers for the use of forest resources. Okay, so they will empower the forest dwellers to access and use forest resources that were traditionally being used, and basically also to conserve and protect the forest. This particular act will also protect the forest dwellers from illegal evictions and will provide basic rights to the community of forest dwellers. Now one other point that you have to keep in mind is that recently in the month of February of 2021, that is this year, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs had included 14 additional minor forest produce items under the MSP scheme, that is the minimum support price scheme. And this was basically done to ensure that the tribal gatherers will get a fair price for their forest produce. Now, before we go to the next section, for a more consolidated and apt approach towards current affairs, you can please join our Current Affairs Plus program of 2021.
Log into neoias.com, go to courses and click on current affairs. Select CAP 2021, proceed to checkout and pay.
Now coming to the next topic, which is the Open Network for Digital Commerce, or simply ONDC. Now what is this basically? Simply speaking, the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, that is DIPT, had launched a project which was called the Open Network for Digital Commerce. The main aim of this particular project is to curb digital monopolies. Okay, curbing digital monopolies, and how does it plan to do that? Is by promoting open networks developed on open source methods, which is completely independent of any specific platform. Now, when you listen to this thing, many of you may be confused as to what exactly is open source. So I'll explain that. See, basically, making any software or any process an open source simply means that all of the codes and the process which is used to make that particular software is freely available for all, and anybody can take those codes or processes and modify it according to their own needs. One example I will give you of between closed source and open source. The OS of Apple, that is Apple OS, is considered a closed source system, wherein a third party cannot come inside it and modify it according to their needs. At the same time, Android users, or the Android OS can be easily modified by anyone. So Android is considered an open source and the Apple OS is considered a closed source. So what is going to happen? Now, if the ONDC or the Open Network Digital Commerce, actually if it gets implemented, then it would actually mean that all the e-commerce companies will have to operate using the same particular process, and this will give a huge boost for the smaller online retailers, and they will not have to compete with, they will obviously have to compete with the retail giants, but they will be put on a much more equal platform. So that is the main aim of the DIPT here. Now, as I told you, another major significance of this particular program would be to help in digitizing the entire value chain, promoting inclusion of suppliers, standardizing operations, deriving efficiencies in logistics, and enhancing the value for customers. Okay. So with that, we'll go to the last topic of the day, which is Ministry of Cooperation. Now, this is a brand new ministry which has been developed by the Government of India, which is called the Ministry of Cooperation, and this ministry will be providing a separate administrative, legal and policy framework for strengthening the cooperative movement in the country. Another major aim of this particular ministry is to streamline the process for ease of doing business for cooperatives and enable development of multi-state cooperatives in the country. So that's all regarding the news. Now let us come to the previous year question revision series. So as you can see in your screen, this is the question for the day, and I want all of you to answer this question or write down the answer of this question in the comment section given below. So I'll just read out the question. Consider the following pairs. You have two specific columns here. We have the river column and where it flows into. So the option number 1 is Mekong River flows into Andaman Sea. Option number 2, Thames River flows into the Irish Sea. The Volga River flows into the Caspian Sea. And finally, the Zambezi River flows into the Indian Ocean. So I want all of you to try this question, attempt this question and give the answer to that and write it down in the comment section given below. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.